It's Labour Party conference right now. A lot of it is about reform. The Lib Dem Party conference, a lot of it was about reform. The boys are cutting you out. How do you feel about that?
There's a huge difference between us and Reform. We are a team. Reform is a one-man band. Without that one guy, everything falls apart. Rachel Reeves is deluding herself. She got a shovel and dug a hole and jumped into it, and then she's complaining that it's the Tories' fault. We warned her. Business is what creates growth. It's not government that creates growth, it's business.
Hello and welcome to a very special episode of the Daily Expresso. I'm Anisiobi, and today we are in the Palace of Westminster, here to interview the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch. Kemi, thank you for hosting us.
Thank you for having me, JJ.
Now, a little later on, we're going to be asking your questions, our wonderful viewers, readers and listeners. You sent in questions for Kemi and I'm going to ask her, but first, let me start with an easy one. Am I talking to the next Prime Minister?
Yes. Unless Andy Burnham overthrows Keir Starmer, then I'll be the one after that. But the truth is, we've got Labour for another 4 years. Everybody keeps talking like there's an election tomorrow, but we've got Labour for another 4 years. Look at the mess they've made after that first year. There's still more to come, I'm afraid.
Well, I was going to say, I've not been overwhelmed with Labour's quote-unquote success in their first 12 months. What do you fear may happen to the country if they do stay for another 4 years with Starmer?
They're going to leave an almighty mess for us to clean up. And it doesn't matter whether it's with Starmer or Burnham or Rayner or whoever, they're all the same. They are all people who don't understand where money comes from and how to grow an economy, lower the cost of living, get people richer. They've never run a business, they've never hired people. They are just, people who spend everybody else's money. And so they don't understand how to run the country. That's what really worries me. And Starmer in particular, because it's not just that he's a socialist, it's also that he's weak. He can't even get his backbenchers to do minor things like, teeny-weeny cuts in welfare. He can't do that. He's very weak.
Do you think the Labour government are dangerous for this country?
Yes, I do think that they're dangerous. I think that they are very complacent about the world which we are living in now. You look at, for example, what they did with the Chagos Islands. Some people may not have heard about it. They gave away our territory to Mauritius, and they paid Mauritius £35 billion in reparations. This is student politics, but that's our money. That's your listeners' money, your readers' money that they've saved, that they get, their pensions. They're going to be taxed on all those things. They are dangerous because they're also going to tax again, come the budget. That's going to create more problems. Every tax rise they've put up has not gone into public services. It's just been borrowing they end up borrowing more to pay off the debt because the taxes that they're raising are closing down businesses. That's really terrible.
So it's your first conference next week as
Yes.
leader. Any sneak previews you can give us?
I know, because I want you to go there and watch the conference. So if I give you the sneak preview, then you won't be there. It's going to be really exciting. I can tell you that. Everyone knows that I'm going to be announcing what we're doing around the ECHR, but this is the conference that's going to show how we are different from both Labour and Reform. We're the only party that is both strong enough to actually do what needs to be done, tough enough, but also competent enough. It's not enough just to be tough if you're not competent, if you're just going to make a mess. And it's definitely not enough if you don't even know what you want to do. But we're the only party that's going to have the backbone and the will and the plan to get stuff done. And we'll be showing that at conference.
Well, what is the difference between Tories and Reform? A few Tories have already defected to Reform. I personally don't see a huge difference between the two parties. Maybe you
JJ,
can...
that's like, you're breaking my heart here.
I'm so sorry.
There's a huge difference between us and Reform. We are a team. So the Conservative Party is not just about Kemi. Yes, I am the leader, but I'm following in the footsteps of really great leaders, Winston Churchill, Margaret Thatcher. We are a party that's been around for a long time, but we work as a team. Reform is a one-man band. Without that one guy, everything falls apart. And yes, he may say some things that sound like what we say, but quite often he's saying what we've said already. He announced his policy on immigration. A lot of it was copied from what we had done. But because he hadn't done the homework, it fell apart because he couldn't explain why he was going to do things. But more importantly, he is not worried about the economy the way I am. we are spending too much. We are living beyond our means. We need to live within our means. Welfare needs to come down. Nigel Farage wants to increase welfare. He wants to remove the two-child benefit cap, which is a very expensive thing. Those are the differences, that we are fiscally responsible. His plans would blow up the economy. Way more deficit, way more debt. We just can't have more of that.
You mentioned the ECHR. The rumor is you're going to announce that if you become the leader of the country, you're going to bring us out of the ECHR. If you did that, do you really think that's going to stop illegal immigration?
It's always been something which I've said is not a silver bullet. Leaving the ECHR alone is not going to stop illegal immigration. It'll help us do some things. But there are some countries who are in it who manage to do more. But there are also other laws and other regulations that we need to look at. And all of it has to be done together. You need to think about it as a whole package, not just announce we're going to leave the ECHR and we'll work it out afterwards. That's not my way. And lots of people were really pushing to say, do this, do this, do this. And I said, I'm an engineer. The way we do things is we work out a plan, we plot it out, we check what could possibly go wrong, you stress test it, and then you say, this is what we're going to do. You don't just say, haha, here's what we're going to do, and then hope it works out. That's the Reform way. It's also the Labour way, which is why they're in the mess that they're in. Labour knew how to campaign for an election. They don't know how to govern. They said all of these things. They don't know how they're going to make it happen. That's not Conservatives. Conservatives know how to make things happen, and we will.
Okay. It's Labour Party conference right now. A lot of it is about reform. The Lib Dem Party conference, a lot of it was about reform. The boys are cutting you out. How do you feel about that?
I know why they're doing it, and they're doing it because they all want to face reform at the election because they think they can beat reform. They don't think that they can beat a renewed Conservative Party. Keir Starmer and Ed Davey want to put themselves as the opposite to reform because they know that a lot of people, a lot of good people, look at reform and don't like the way they behave. They know that they don't think the same about us. And despite some of the mistakes we made, and I do acknowledge that mistakes were made, we are under new leadership now. Lots of people still look at Conservatives as a responsible and competent party who lost their way. I'm showing that new leadership, we're back on track and we're going the right direction.
Well, you say that, but yeah, it was. I know you weren't the leader then, but 14 years, essentially of failure. Rachel Reeves yesterday said she blames the Tories for the fiscal position the country's in now. How can you convince the public that despite a 14-year poor track record, you're going to be any different?
Rachel Reeves is deluding herself. She got a shovel and dug a hole and jumped into it, and then she's complaining that it's the Tories' fault. We warned her. Business is what creates growth. It's not government that creates growth, it's business. We are the party of business. And we told all these Labour people who never, even worked in the private sector, everybody knows about Rachel's CV, that's why they call her Rachel from accounts, that if you tax business, you're going to create a deep hole. And she did that. Businesses have been closing, they've been sacking people. Unemployment has risen every single month since Labour came into office. And now they're coming for more tax rises. I think they're going to be taxing people's pensions. All those people who saved and worked hard, Labour will be coming for that. And what I would say to those people is that I know that the 14 years we made mistakes. It wasn't mistakes throughout. We kept winning elections over those 14 years.
True.
That's because we were doing something right. It was only towards the end that it went wrong. We did great things on education, shot up the international league tables. Imagine if Jeremy Corbyn or Keir Starmer had been around during COVID and had been in charge. It would have been a disaster. We started fixing the economic mess Labour left us in 2010. But towards the end, I acknowledge that mistakes were made. That's what I'm fixing. And I want people to remember the Conservative Party that they were voting for, not the mistakes towards the end, because that's the tradition I'm taking us back to.
Okay. You mentioned pensions. The triple lock, it's a bit contentious. Are you going to keep that going, or are you going to...
We're keeping it going because it's about fairness. Right now, the biggest problem is that a lot of people are out of work. After COVID, we saw 1 million people leave the workforce. That's an extraordinary number. Lots of people just decided, I don't need to work. Since Labour came in, an extra 1,000 people each day, are signing on for out-of-work benefits. So it's gone up from 2,000 new people each day to 3,000 new people each day. We need to deal with that because if you're not getting people into work, then it's not fair to then go after the people who did work and have had the savings. So that's why we're focusing on welfare savings first. If we can get the economy growing, then we won't even be thinking about looking at pensions, because the economy will be growing enough to look after everybody. And that's why focusing on economic growth, focusing on what business can do, and letting those people know that there are people. If you run a business on your high street, or you're self-employed, you're a plumber, and you're just finding it hard to get things going, business rates, endless jobs, taxes, NI, all of that. We want people to know that we get it, and we're coming up with a package of reforms that's going to make life better for them.
I think our Express readers are going to love that, actually.
I hope so.
I'm sure they will. Now, Keir Starmer, he said that Nigel Farage's plans to reform indefinite leave to remain are racist and immoral. Do you agree with Starmer, or do you agree with Farage on that?
No, I don't agree with Starmer, and I think that Starmer needs to look at what his own Home Secretary is proposing. We're the ones who actually started talking about indefinite leave to remain. Neither of these two men had even heard of it. Again, we did the work, but because right now we've just left office, a lot of people are not looking at the work that we're doing. It was actually Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, who did all the work around indefinite leave to remain. And our policy is that there is a fast track to British citizenship that needs to be slowed down. People who come to this country need to show that they can contribute, need to show that they love this country, that they're going to work hard. But toughening your immigration policy is not racist. Keir Starmer has always felt that immigration policy was racist right from when he was at school or university. He said this a long time. And the real thing that annoys me is that so many people are throwing out the word racist all over the place, that the real racists are not able to come out and hide in plain sight. If you call every single thing racist rather than attack it on its merits, then you lose the meaning of the word. And for someone like me, that's a real problem, because I want us to focus on the actual things that are going wrong, so that when there is genuine racism, we can address it properly, rather than just calling every single thing racist and then no one pays attention anymore. That's where Labour's going wrong.
Okay, I just heard Big Ben ringing in the background there. Huge sign of British politics. And Westminster. But I'm a working class boy. Where I'm from, people lost faith in our politicians. Over the last 15, 20 years, we think you guys are all the same. How do you make sure that people who didn't vote and are sick of the way the country is are now going to come out and say, actually, Kemi's the one for us?
By telling the truth. You're absolutely right. A lot of people have lost faith in politics because people make promises and then don't deliver. They say, well, we're going to do all these fantastic things and don't deliver. That's why we ended up losing the election, because we made promises, didn't deliver. Keir Starmer is having problems because he made promises, didn't deliver. Look at what happened with winter fuel. They said that they were going to look after elderly people, not touch winter fuel. That's the first thing they snatched away. Nigel Farage is doing the same thing. He's making promises, doesn't know how he's going to deliver. So I'm doing the difficult thing. I'm being honest and saying, there's some things that we can't do. I'm not going to lie to you about what we can do, but here are the things that we can do. We're going to take some very tough decisions, but we will be open with people about the tough decisions. That's why a lot of people have been disillusioned. And we need to give them that faith back in politics, because once it disappears, you end up with anarchy. This is a country that has, survived because we're a high trust society. People trust their neighbors, they trust their politicians, they know that people are looking after them. And we've got to show that we're looking after them, not looking after ourselves.
Okay, nice and simple. Can you stop the boats?
Yes.
How do you stop the boats? And are you the one who's going to stop them?
Can I stop the boats? Yes. How do you stop the boats? By having a proper borders plan. You need a third country deterrent, and you need to get round all of the legalese.
You're going to bring back Rwanda?
Rwanda, it was working before we'd even started it. People were deciding not to bother coming. That's what a deterrent is. A deterrent is, if I get there, I'm not going to stay there. Keir Starmer scrapped that. Now he's got some one-in, one-out deal with France, where we've had nobody out and 100 people in, because they're still using that same legal system. We have, they're using loopholes in the legal system. We need to close some of those loopholes, and those are the things I'm going to be talking about at conference.
Okay. Generally speaking, I think you come across very stoic when you're on camera. You're very warm today, but generally I think you're very factual. Do you think you're cutting through with the British people, and are they seeing the real Kemi?
So I think that what people see is me talking seriously, because I've got to show people that I'm a serious person. That's not what I'm like all the time. But if you want someone to be your prime minister, you want to know that they can do the job. So it's important for me to show that I understand the facts, that I am competent. But my personality is actually very laid back, very sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Just
chill?
No, I don't think it's I don't think it's chill. I think it's quite it can actually end up looking quite flippant, like I'm not taking things seriously. So I probably overcompensate for that, because I love to have a laugh. I like to tease people, which is what, and they don't always like being teased. They don't always like being teased, so they think that I'm being mean. I'm being mean to them, but I'm just having a laugh, and I like being teased. I think it's quite funny. I grew up being teased constantly. I live, I grew up in a banter family. So, and my new family now, obviously with my 3 children, it's all bants. So that, but when I come to work, I worry that if I'm too bantery, that it looks unserious. Because at the end of the day, the job I have as leader of the opposition is a constitutional role. It's His Majesty's loyal leader of the opposition. It's not just a made-up thing, and that's who my boss is at the end of the day. It's the king. I've got to make sure that I'm treating the job with the respect that it deserves.
Well, I think you're doing a decent job as leader of the opposition. I really do. But I got to ask you about Robert Jenrick. He seems to be out manoeuvring and snapping at your heels. The guy's quite ambitious. Does that worry you at all?
Not at all. I won the leadership election, and that's all that matters. And at the end of the day, you need different people to build a strong team. The thing I said about us being a strong team is true. It doesn't mean that we're always going to agree on everything. But a Conservative Party that has people like me and Rob Jenrick in it is a stronger party. And that's really, really important to me, to show that we are united. A lot of the squabbling which people saw from us last year has stopped. Many people actually on the doorstep said, I'm not voting for you guys because you're always arguing with each other. And one of the things I wanted to make sure was that people saw a united Conservative Party. And I give people space to disagree once in a while, because what kind of party would we be if there's no space for disagreement? We're not a one-man band where it's a dictatorship and everybody has to go with what the master says. We're a lot more flexible than that.
Well, I believe what you're saying. Genuinely, I do, and I like the fact that you're telling the truth and you're saying things that may be unpopular, but they're factual and it's how it is. But if the leader of Reform is going to continue to make promises that he can't keep and he hasn't done the maths for, people are going to keep believing him. Do you fear that he may be a long-term problem for the Conservatives?
No, I don't think that people will keep believing. It's my job to expose where the government is going wrong, but where other parties are also not being honest. And we've just got to say it again and again and again. I can't worry about what Keir Starmer or Nigel Farage are doing with their parties. I need to show people that my party is the best offer that they've got. And that's not easy when they've just said no in a big way. But time fixes that. The last oppositions have been 14 years, 13 years, 18 years. I haven't been in the job long enough for us to be making conclusions. We are starting out a policy renewal program. Conference is going to be the first of many, many things. It's the beginning of what we're doing. We spent the whole year holding Labour to account. We've got them to U-turn. Remember, they weren't going to do that. Grooming gangs national inquiry got them to do that. We ran campaigns in the Labour MPs' constituencies, got their constituents knowing what they were doing on winter fuel. They changed their mind on winter fuel. We exposed the nonsense they were doing on welfare. So we are doing the job of opposition, but we've got more than that to do. We've got to obviously make sure that we stay competitive. Right now, because Labour is doing so badly and we've just been kicked out, the other parties will get support. But at the end of the day, when there is an election, people are going to look for who is going to be best for my life, not just who's been, telling me what I want to hear. We need the truth.
So you're 20 points behind Reform, according to recent polls. As you say, the election's probably going to be in 4 years' time. Is this a case of the tortoise and the hare? Is it slow and steady is going to win the race?
Steady will definitely win the race. We're actually not moving slowly at all. There's a lot that we're changing. But what I have, which Nigel Farage doesn't have and Keir Starmer doesn't have, is 5 years of experience in government. I have gone into the beast. I have seen why it doesn't work. I wasn't in charge then, but there was a lot of stuff that I saw and I know how to fix it. Both of them are learning on the job. Keir Starmer is learning on the job. We can see it's not going to work. If we vote in a Reform Party that's just a one-man band, then they're going to go in and they're going to make the same sort of mistakes, just learning on the job. We are an experienced team. We've acknowledged the mistakes we've made. There is new leadership now. I'm not any of the former prime ministers. I am the person that a lot of people saw when I was in government as not running away from fights. When we had the trans activists making a lot of women's lives miserable, I was out there saying, this is what a woman is, and protecting single-sex spaces, stopping Scotland from doing all that nonsense. I'm not afraid to have a fight, and lots of people gave me grief for it. But I was right in the end, and I was shown to be right in the end. And I will do that across everything that I'm working on as opposition leader.
Would you consider now it's going to sound crazy, but would you consider coalition? At the next election, maybe we have the Lib Dems once again united with the Tories. Would you consider that to get into power?
So I will just remind people about the 14 years of Conservative government, which they felt weren't conservative enough. The first 5 years we were in a coalition, we didn't have a majority. We also had, under Theresa May, no majority. We needed confidence and supply from other parties. Those things don't necessarily deliver you the conservatism that you want. The only way to get a Conservative government is to vote for a Conservative government.
So you wouldn't consider a coalition?
If I'm talking about coalitions now, that means I'm working for how to stitch things up. And people will, it means that I don't know what I'm telling people. How can you believe me that I will deliver what I'm promising if I'm talking about a coalition? What are the people I go into coalition with say they don't want this thing or they don't want that thing? So I cannot be talking about that. I need to talk about what I will do so that people know what kind of person I am.
You've got a very stressful job. You said...
Is it stressful?
I presume it's stressful leading the opposition.
So I actually quite enjoy the job. Maybe
you like
I
the stress?
Well, I like it is the most stimulating job that I've ever had. And every moment there's something going on, so it's quite enjoyable. Obviously, there are bits of it that are quite tough. The toughest time was at the May local elections when quite a lot of my councillors lost their seats, and it's what happens to other people. That I have a lot of people that I'm looking after, and that's quite tough when you're really fighting for them, and sometimes things don't work. But for me, it's a very enjoyable job. I mean, just last week, was it 2 weeks ago, I got to go to the state banquet. I met President Trump.
Are you a fan of Trump?
Well, he was very charming.
Yeah.
And he said to me, well done on supporting oil and gas. And, I met the guy who started ChatGPT, Sam Altman. And you start to realize that you're doing a job that many people did before you for hundreds of years. You've got something to deliver. You need to show that this is the UK. I feel a huge responsibility that I am a representative of the British Isles, and I have to really do my best. And it's quite an honor. It's quite a privilege to do that. So I don't forget those things. Yes, there'll be tough times. People throw abuse at you, and you get the death threats, and Keir Starmer's talking rubbish at PMQs, and you just roll your eyes. All of that stuff is tough. But you balance it with the bits of the job that are actually quite nice. And it's a fantastic but incredibly difficult job. And it's a privilege to be doing it.
So before you interrupted me, Kemi, I was going to say, how do you cope with the stress of the job? I mean, you don't find the job stressful. Just because last year you said you stopped believing in God. So I was thinking, well, I'm a Catholic. I go to church pretty much every Sunday. Having that religion around me helps me get through the stressful times of my life. What do you do instead then? So
it's funny you're a Catholic. My husband is Catholic and all my children are Catholic, and they go to church every Sunday. I go on occasional Sundays. So it's really, I really believe in Christianity as a force for good. My grandfather was a reverend, so I'm a cultural Christian. I know all the hymns, and I think that making sure that we keep Christianity strong in the UK is quite important. But you asked about what I do to relax. It is those three children. They are the fun in my life. Every morning they wake up and it's banter. They're doing something crazy, and hanging out with them is the thing that sort of switches off everything else that's going on. And yes, there are things that I might do, on my own, occasionally reading, but there's very little time to read. But I will always make time for my children.
Amazing. Very quickly, we have 3 questions from our listeners, viewers and readers. If you just get your quick answer on these ones. Steph from Leeds wants to know, some of your comments about race have been seen as dismissive of lived experiences within the black communities. How do you ensure your voice does not erase or silence others? And who is in your circle as a reality check?
My reality check is my husband. But because you need somebody who can take a step back and look at how things are, rather than the Westminster bubble or the political bubble. But I actually think that the conversation around race has got very distorted, and there are not enough voices like mine reminding people that this is not a racist country. If it was, I wouldn't be sitting here doing what I'm doing. You wouldn't be sitting there doing what you're doing. And 5 years ago, at the height of everything that was going on with BLM, I was very against so much of what was happening, because if you start encouraging people to identify with certain groups rather than with everyone else, what it is we share, which is being British, then when others start identifying with their groups, you won't like it. And what we're seeing right now is many people retreating into identity groups and creating conflict. That's not healthy for the country. So what I want to see is people, let's stop talking about who's been a victim of this, what this grievance is about. What are the shared experiences we have that can actually create social cohesion, that can bind us together? Not talking about the things that constantly split us apart. This is not a racist country. Yes, of course, there will be some people who are racist in every single country. That is the case, even in places where everyone looks the same. But you can't use the small minority to cast aspersions on the whole country. That just creates division and conflict.
Okay, one more. Bobby from Kidderminster. The people coming over on small boats are clearly chancers. If they were genuine refugees, there would be a lot more women and elderly people in the mix.
I agree, Bobby. Bobby's right.
Not just young men. What do you have to say about that?
Bobby's right.
Bobby's right.
There are many people that we see who are actually economic migrants, and they are exploiting our kindness. We had those laws in place for situations of war, not just people who wanted a better life. And they're using our legal system against us. I'm very focused now on making sure that people stop exploiting our kindness. We only want people in this country who love our country and who want to contribute to it, not take us for a ride.
You know what? That's all the questions from the listeners I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
But I have one more question for you.
Okay.
Are you really enjoying this job? You're saying you love the stress and you get to relax by being with your kids and Hamish. But do you really enjoy it? Was it worth it, this pursuit to be the leader of opposition and eventually to be Prime Minister?
Yes, but it's because of what I want to do with it. It's not an award becoming leader of the opposition. It's not an award becoming Prime Minister. And too many people see getting the job, whether this job or the Prime Ministerial job, as the end. And they think, we've won the race, we're relaxing. It's actually what we're going to do to fix people's lives, fix the problems in the country. And that's very exciting. When I see all the policies that are coming through and we can do this, and this is how we can, grow the economy, make more money, we can turn this area around, we can make savings here. That's very exciting because at the end of the day, I'm an engineer. That's what I trained for at university. I like to solve problems. And the job is exciting because this is a problem-solving job. It's not about personal enjoyment. I could have stayed in banking and had an easier life, but it would not have been a fulfilling life. Every day doing this job, knowing that I can fix that. If I just get the chance, I can make that better. And it was everything I did when I was a minister, and I want to do that again. That's why it's an exciting job.
Well, Kemi Badenoch, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, JJ.
That is all for today's episode of Daily Expresso. If we've earned your like, hit the thumbs up and subscribe, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.